Hey, second graders. Not sure why I'm wearing lipstick. I found it in the medicine cabinet in the bathroom today, and I decided, why not? Let's read another chapter of Wayside. This one's chapter 28, Valooosh. Mrs. Jules rang her cowbell. I have some wonderful news, she said. The children stopped what they were doing and looked up. They waited for Mrs. Jules to tell them the wonderful news. You are a very lucky class indeed, said Mrs. Jules. Mrs. Valooosh, the famous dancer, will be coming here to Wayside School. She will teach you how to dance. Everyone was still waiting for the wonderful news. Isn't that exciting? Asked Mrs. Jules. You will see her every Wednesday instead of going to PE. Will the girls have to dance with boys? Asked Jenny. I suppose, said Mrs. Jules. Gross, exclaimed Leslie. Yuck, said Dana. Will the boys have to dance with girls? Asked Ron. Obviously, said Mrs. Jules. No way, said Eric Fry. I'd rather dance with a dead rat, said Terence. Everybody started talking at once about cooties and warts and other horrible diseases you get from touching girls and boys. Mrs. Jules rang her cowbell again and told them to settle down. Mrs. Jules, I don't need to take dancing lessons, said Eric Bacon. I already know how to dance. Yes, Eric, I've seen you dance, Mrs. Jules said sarcastically. Eric Bacon was a great break dancer, but break dancing was no longer allowed at Wayside School. That was because every time Eric danced, he broke something. Mrs. Valooosh will teach you the grace and beauty of classical ballroom dancing, said Mrs. Jules. Everybody groaned. Can you groan? Aww. On Wednesday, they all headed down to the first dancing lesson, except Myron. Myron went to PE. How come Myron never has to do anything? Asked Jason. I don't know, said Calvin. I've been wondering about that, too. Myron's father must be friends with the president, said Beebe. I think Myron gave Mr. Kidswatter $1,000, said Todd. They entered the room on the second floor. Welcome, said Mrs. Valooosh, a strange-looking woman with bright red hair. It looked like her hair was on fire. My name is Miss Valooosh. It's so wonderful to have you here, to be here at Wayside School. She wore pink tights and sparkling pink top. I hope we will be friends, yes? She asked. Nobody said a word. All around her were red and green balls. There was also one yellow ball. This was the room where Lewis kept the balls for lunch and recess. It was also the room that was always used for school dances. It was the ballroom. So, exclaimed Mrs. Valooosh, who will be first? Everyone tried to hide behind everyone else. Mrs. Valooosh put her hands on Ron's face. What is your name? She asked. Ron? He squeaked. Ronaldo! Bellowed Mrs. Valooosh. King of the gypsies! I don't know how to dance, said Ron. Dance? Asked Mrs. Valooosh. She looked very surprised. We're not going to dance, she said. We're not? Asked Ron. No, Ronaldo, whispered Mrs. Valooosh. We are going to tango. She put her left arm around Ron's waist. Then she grabbed his left hand with her right and stuck it way out in front of them. Suddenly, the music started. Mrs. Valooosh dragged poor Ron across the room, and she stomped her feet in time to the music. Dump, 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 da-da, dump, 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 dump. Hey! When she yelled hey, she threw Ron up in the air and clapped her hands. Ron turned a somersault in midair. Then Mrs. Valooosh caught him. They tangoed back to where they started. Ron's eyes were spinning in opposite directions. Hey, that looks fun, said Marisa. Do me. Very well, said Mrs. Valooosh. She grabbed Marisa and tangoed with her across the room. Dump, 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 da-da-da-dump, dump, 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 dump. Hey! She threw Marisa up in the air and clapped her hands. Marisa turned a double somersault before Mrs. Valooosh caught her. They tangoed back to the front. My turn, said Terence. As Mrs. Valooosh tangoed with Terence, the other kids stamped their feet along with Mrs. Valooosh. They all yelled, hey, at the same time and clapped their hands. One by one, Mrs. Valooosh tangoed with every kid in class. The other kids danced with each other. Boys danced with girls. The girls danced with boys. They didn't care. Paul danced with Leslie. Dana danced with John. Terence danced with Rondi. Allison danced with Jason. DJ danced with Kathy. Todd danced with Joy. Hey! They all shouted together. Of course, they weren't strong enough to throw each other up in the air. Instead, they tried to trip each other and throw each other on the ground. Hey! Even Kathy was having fun. Hey! She shouted as she kicked DJ. Kathy. They also threw the balls at each other. Hey! Mrs. Walloosh began to get tired. Sometimes she didn't catch the children after she tossed them in the air. Dee Dee crashed to the floor. Wow, she said. This is more fun than playing dodgeball. Hey! At last, the music stopped. Dum, 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 dum. And everyone shouted, Hey! One last time. Mrs. Walloosh clapped her hands. Wonderful, she exclaimed. Fantastique! They all staggered out of the ballroom, cut up, bruised, and bleeding. Next week, we valse, Mrs. Walloosh called after them. So how did everyone like dancing? Asked Mrs. Jules when they returned. Dance? Asked Ronaldo, king of the gypsies. We didn't dance. You didn't? Asked Mrs. Jules. No, said Ronaldo. We tangoed. Everyone cheered. It was wonderful, exclaimed Kathy. Fantastique, said Terence. Myron was sorry he had missed it. I can't wait till next Wednesday, said Todd. Would you like to have dance class instead of PE for a little while? Let me know. You can email me back.